Hey, everybody. Welcome to a special video edition of Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. That's a nonprofit online newspaper covering Ansonia. I don't know why I can't say Ansonia, but Ansonia, Derby, and Seymour. That's in Connecticut's lower Naugatuck Valley, in case you're listening from Mars. My guest this week is Sharon Closius, the president and CEO of the Valley Community Foundation, headquartered in Derby. Welcome back to the program, Sharon.
Always great to be here with you, Eugene. No matter how we do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, by phone, in person, Zoom, as long as it gets done. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because I think it's a hugely important issue. We're going to be talking about sort of the COVID-19 economic impact and what the Valley Community Foundation, the Valley United Way, the Chamber of Commerce, Health and Human Services here in the Valley, what they're doing to address this evolving need that we're seeing, especially locally in the Valley. And it's a subject I feel I'm sort of isolated as a reporter in the Valley. Even though I cover the communities, I tend to be just focusing on sort of the politics and government meetings. And so I'm not sure if the actual impact COVID-19 is having, other than the numbers that I report of people who have come down with the disease, is really being felt. So I think Sharon, during this interview, will be able to provide some information about how people can help. So anyway, it's very nice to have you here.
Good to be here.
So I often touch base with John Reddy, and he's the Donor Services and Communications Director for your organization, the VCF in Derby. And in correspondence with him about a month ago, he indicated that there was this widely anticipated, he called it a tsunami of need coming in the Valley because of the sort of after effects of COVID-19. So Sharon, your organization, just by the nature of what it does, what its mission is, really has its collective finger on the pulse of needs in the lower Naugatuck Valley. So my two questions just to start off, is that tsunami still on the way, and can you describe it for me?
Oh, it's absolutely still on the way. I can't even answer to let you know what it's going to look like yet. What we do know is that it's coming. And the reason we don't know what it's going to look like right now is because we don't know how many companies have actually closed their doors completely and are laying people off. So we don't know what the true unemployment rate is. We don't know what's going to happen with those that are currently on unemployment. What happens when they, whether they're going to be given $400 extra a week or $600 extra a week. What's going to happen when they don't get that? And what's going to happen when all of a sudden the landlords need to get that back rent that they haven't been receiving, and all of a sudden people are said, we need you to, start giving us, making up for all of these pieces that have been put on hold. Thank goodness have been put on hold all this time. But at some point in time, those things do become due.
And, before we went, now we're not live, we're recording this, but before our Zoom session started, I was sort of poking around the internet because this is such a big picture issue in the Valley, in Connecticut, and of course beyond. But like one thing you brought up was unemployment. And I've been trying for months to sort of get a handle on, I remember during the Great Give, I asked every politician who came on, what's the unemployment rate? What's happening in terms of COVID? And like you said, to this day, if you go to the Department of Labor website here in Connecticut, and this is not a knock against the Department of Labor or the state of Connecticut, but they say right on there in red, it is the rate of unemployment is significantly underestimated because people who are unemployed a lot of times are being classified as just away from work, which is a COVID-related complication to collecting this data. But in June, even with that said, the state unemployment rate in June was about 10%, vastly understated. Ansonia was at 13.6. Again, and that's a high number, but it's assuming that that's vastly understated. Derby was at 12%, Oxford 8%, Seymour 10.4%, Shelton 10%. I also looked up how many businesses are getting or receive those PPP loans that the government gave out. And I guess this was really, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, because I think you're in a better position to know than I am. This saved thousands and thousands of jobs in the Valley. 16 businesses in Ansonia got it, according to data I saw, 18 in Derby, 25 in Seymour, 143 companies in Shelton. And I believe that what was made public was $150,000 or more. So without that, if there was no PPP program from the government, what would the situation have been like a few months back, Sharon? Do you have any idea?
Oh, it would have just been dire. It really would have been. I think, to me, many of those companies, now that they received the PPP, hopefully some of those will be able to be forgiven. And I know I was on a number of calls listening to the state, the advancedct.org, which is, status of the state working and everything else. And our state really needed to be able to try and get as much federal dollars and federal support in as possible. So that PPP money is federal money. So it's additional money that came into our state, which is fantastic. And then hopefully some of these will be forgiven because they were able to keep people on that unemployment, or not unemployment, but furloughed, and being able to make those payroll commitments. If not, they would have had to put everybody, let people go, lay people off, in order to try and keep those employees. Or I'm sorry, not keep those employees, but at least now when they're opening their doors again, they're able to keep those employees and get them back, hopefully, to work. But one of the things that you were mentioning with those numbers of unemployment and everything else, when we did the community index last year, you may recall our conversation, we did the community index. And one of the things that was really highlighted there, as far as the economics are concerned, is what a service industry we are. In the Valley, primarily, and in the state of Connecticut, we become much more service-oriented, service-type businesses than we are manufacturing. And it's those service businesses, it's people who work in the hotels, in the restaurants, the service field, the aides and that type of workers, those are the ones who were laid off. And those are the ones that are still not getting back to work. And that's why our rates are even higher sometimes because of that.
And that was particularly true in Shelton, where there are hotels basically in our hyper local area. The hotels are all on Bridgeport Avenue in Shelton. And yeah, I was looking at, I believe they're called the Warren Acts that the Department of Labor puts out that anybody can look up on the Connecticut Department of Labor website. And those are when the companies are required by law, if they're going to need to do a big layoff to warn the government that this is coming. And it was all hotels right off the bat. It was all the hotels first that were really hit hard from this. And of course, what we're saying here is like one of my points was the PPP loans kept people employed, but the crisis is still in our country. COVID-19 is still circulating. We're still feeling its effects. I mean, it could very well come back. That remains an open question. And then in terms of, I just wanted to highlight on August 7th, the Connecticut Mirror, which is ctmirror.org. That's the nonprofit sort of statewide newspaper that I highly recommend people read. They had a story. I don't have the author's name in front of me. I apologize. But the story was about an impending housing crisis that could be coming. And I'll just read the first graph. It said, Connecticut is on the precipice of a housing crisis if it hasn't already arrived. 1,100 people call the state every day seeking help from Connecticut's coronavirus housing assistance program in paying their rent or mortgage bills. Only about 170 of the callers actually qualify for help under the program's narrow parameters, and the odds will soon get worse unless something changes. Just bear with me for one more second. State eviction rates are expected to jump from 4% in a typical year to 7% this year. Nearly a quarter of renters in Connecticut miss their June rent payment. Roughly 1 in 11 homeowners are behind on their mortgages. So I guess I don't mean to concentrate on the doom and gloom here, but this is a serious issue. And I mean, we have the COVID-19 recovery and response fund that a number of nonprofits, including the VCF, started. So explain what that fund is, and now we're in this. What phase are we in?
Well, you don't even want to say you're in recovery because we don't even know when that recovery, you still have COVID out there. You still have the virus out there that's active. But when we established the fund, and that was the we I'm referring to is the Community Foundation, along with the Valley United Way, the Valley Chamber of Commerce, and then the group of the Health and Human Service Council, which is made up of 40 some nonprofits, coming together to say we need to have a COVID response fund to deal with just specifically COVID. Response and recovery fund, just for the Valley, and response and recovery. That fund was established in the very beginning, and it gave out 3 rounds of grants. Right now, $145,000 has been distributed from that fund, and those initial grants were for food, going to our shelters or our pantries. It was for PPE, for our essential workers. And it was for some of these changes that the organizations had to go through. So the going to telehealth, a lot of our nonprofits had to all of a sudden gear up to be able to provide their services in a different way. Now we are gearing up this fund again for what we're thinking is going to be this tsunami that's coming. We got a real challenge for our nonprofits, because they not only are going to have this tremendous need because of being able to serve their clients that are coming through their doors, they also haven't been able to do any other fundraisers. So, here an organization might be ready to do a fundraiser, and they count on that $40,000, $50,000 of revenue to come in to be able to do to support their operations, and now they don't have it. And they also may have a huge influx, like you're talking about with housing. They're going to have a very large influx of clients that need their support and need their help. Our food pantries will have a much more stronger need to be out there to provide services for their clients, and many more clients will be knocking at their doors. So we just, like I said, we don't know what happens when all of a sudden we find out who's unemployed, who's really unemployed, what that number is, and when all of a sudden they're not getting that support. They're not getting the extra money from the unemployment check. They're not getting this stay from getting evictions because they're going to start going through the courts again. So we don't know what that picture is. We just know that it's really coming. And when we first went out, we've raised almost $250,000 for this fund. And like I said, we've already distributed 145. We're kind of holding back a little bit right now till we can raise the funds for this fund some more. And so we're doing some multiple campaigns to get the awareness out there that it's not over yet. It's
a huge problem. And what you just described is, there's this sort of double or triple whammy coming, where you have a looming housing crisis, perhaps is on the way. We've got businesses struggling to stay open. We don't know if some will reopen. That further hurts our community and the economy, of course. Then you've got the services, the nonprofits that are out there that are usually there, that safety net to help people when they need help. They're in trouble. I've been reading a message from the VCF and others from that group every week on this podcast, and there's that part where it says some might even close their doors, which is sort of unfathomable to think about. So how can people help? This fund still exists. It's done a ton of good in terms of getting, you're talking, when you said earlier, the protective equipment, that went to like ambulance corps and hospitals. Frontline people who are on there. So how can people help? And because obviously it's a cliche, but we're all in this together, and we're all going to need to sort of step up and give to this fund. How do we do it?
Thank you. Thank you, Eugene. We are, like I said, we're starting a new campaign right now saying these are the 3 ways you can help. You can give directly to the COVID fund. That happens to be on, it's only housed on our website because we're acting as the fiduciary agent or the fiscal agent on this. But you can go and make a direct contribution to the COVID fund. You can increase your contribution to your favorite nonprofits. Because if you usually give your nonprofit in $50 a year, boy, if you can increase that to 75 or 100, that's, if people can increase, not just make their gift, but actually increase their gift. And the other way is the Valley United Way. They've got 12 partner agencies. I think it's 12, might be more than that. I'm sorry, the United Way, in which you can give to the United Way, work with them in their corporate campaign that's going to be coming up, and get that money through the United Way out to those other partner agencies that they have. We're going to be able to, because I'm going to add to the challenge here. The Community Foundation has already made most of their grants for the year. We just announced, and you, I think, publicized that for us, our grant making.
Well, not yet. I have to put a bunch of hyperlinks in there. It'll be, by the time this comes out, it'll be up. I apologize.
Catherine Matthews Foundation has already made their grants for the year. The United Way has made it for this year and are getting ready for this, next spring. And we have these challenges that, the grant money had to get out the door as soon as possible because our nonprofits and our communities needed it. But this COVID fund can be given out at any time. So when we start hearing that there is a great need and our nonprofits are saying, I literally need this or I'm closing my doors, we want to have this fund available for them to be able to apply for not a $2,500 grant, but maybe a $10,000 grant or a $25,000 grant, because that is how big their need is going to be when they need to do these things, because it's just that dire. And so you've got grant making organizations, but we're limited. So like I say, we've already gotten the majority of our dollars out for this year already, and we're only in August. So we know that there's going to be a great, tremendous need the end of this year and definitely next year. So if companies wanted to pledge for 2 years, okay, I can give you $5,000 this year and $5,000 next year. At least we know it's coming in and we don't have to go back out and do another ask. Because that's what's hard is, a lot of people were absolutely, we got $250,000 and there's a lot of donations that came in. And that's why we have to say we still need some more help. So if you've already given and you can do it again, please do. Because if you can do a multi-year, okay, I'll commit this year and next year, because we know, right now, we know it's definitely going into 2021 that these nonprofits are going to be needing the support. And I even hate to say it could be going into 2022 by the time they could get into recovery. It's going to be tough.
And that's what all signs are pointing to that. Yeah, this thing is not over. Although today it kind of feels like, oh, we're doing okay. I can go to the beach maybe, but like there is still a huge need out there. The website, if I want to give, is valleyfoundation.org, right?
That's correct. Yep. And then right on the front page is the COVID fund.
It's very easy to do it. It's not like an intrusive process. It takes like 5 minutes to do. And I wanted to ask you, Sharon, have any nonprofits closed yet in the Valley? I assume I would have heard that, but I just want to check.
Not that I know of. But at the same time, it's hard to tell. It's always hard to tell because they're technically very difficult for them to do business sometimes, some of them. Mm-hmm. But most of them are really trying to do their work online. And as we've been saying, or people have been saying, support your local restaurants, get your takeout. I know that my family, we try to do 1 or 2 nights a week where we do takeout just to keep supporting our local restaurants. Well, the same thing happens with some of our arts organizations, they're in dire straits because it's very hard for them to do a performance. So they've been trying to do things online and different venues, and pay attention to it and think about why they're doing it, because they really need the support. Those
Yeah,
fundraisers were big,
and it is amazing how, in terms of the arts, that can sort of slip away from the front of people's minds when something like this happens. But yeah, that's a very good point. And there was a columnist for Hearst, the Hearst Empire, Susan Campbell. She had a column August 8th this month, and her headline was, quote, "A tsunami of displaced people as CT faces eviction emergency." So if there's anybody out there who wants to learn more about this, there's been plenty of sort of a big picture coverage of this issue. I'm still not convinced it's hitting home at this point, but which is one of the reasons we're doing
And one of the
podcast
things,
or billboards going up. Where will we see these? And what do the billboards just stress the ways you can help? What is
yes,
it? What are the
exactly.
billboards about?
All the billboards and the ads stress these three ways of helping: through, giving to the COVID fund, participating in the Valley United Ways campaign, as well as that direct gift to your favorite organizations. And sometimes one way that might work to be able to set these up would be to do recurring gifts, because then sometimes it doesn't hurt as much, if you know what I mean, to give each month maybe $20.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I think my internet cable, our internet connection, just became unstable. I got that deadly Zoom message, so I apologize for that. You might have cut out briefly.
Okay.
But I mean, the gist of the billboards is it gives you the ways to give.
Correct.
I don't want to make you repeat yourself, because I'm afraid that'll happen again. So we might want to wrap this up. But before we go, because I have no ability to pause and come back to this, I'm not that advanced. But the last thing I wanted to ask you about was, you had mentioned a lot of nonprofits canceled their annual dinner or breakfast or their big fundraising event of the year. So many. And again, these nonprofits are, they're out there helping people. They're our safety net. And the VCF was among. Every May you would have your annual dinner, for lack. Is that what you called it? A dinner?
Donor reception.
Donor reception.
Heavy orders, right.
But this year you decided to use the money for other things. Please explain that to me before my computer explodes.
Yes, because the Community Foundation, it wasn't one of our fundraisers. It was one of our appreciation events. And we would have it usually at Racebrook and have about 200 people there. And so instead of being able to have it, because of course we postponed it first, but then we found out, no, we really can't even still have it this year. So we took some of that, the proceeds of that, and actually did appreciation gifts, giving gifts to our first responders, our healthcare workers at our senior living facilities, as well as Griffin Hospital and TEAM, some of those different organizations that are frontline. And we just wanted to share our appreciation. The ambulance corps and the fire departments, people, in those critical positions, to say thank you.
Yeah, I have a note here. There were several hundred packages of lip balm and hand creams given to Griffin Hospital, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's nice. And it was amazing to see in the first few weeks of this, as everything was shutting down and we entered this very strange and scary
Twilight Zone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it was nice to see people just automatically give in that type of way. I mean, we started a column where we would I had to just take everything from Facebook of all the things that were being donated to just help out in some way. And we had like a running list for a while there, which was just good to see. So anyway, I want to thank you, Sharon, for coming on the program today. And hopefully There were no technical different. I don't know. You and I are kind of, whenever I have somebody on from the VCF, something, I don't know. Something, it's
Well, I
Murphy's
just
Law.
kept talking, even though you were, not moving and everything else. Yeah, exactly. I just kept talking. So
You are a professional. That's the difference here. The show must go on. But before I let you go, is there anything else you wanted to add or that I haven't brought up?
oh, I think you did a phenomenal job, like you always have done. You're very insightful of what the needs are in the valley, and we just all really, really appreciate that, and our valley nonprofits appreciate that. And if people can, be able to make contributions to one of these three ways, that's what we really want to have happen. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I want to thank you again for coming on, and it was great to see you. And best of luck with the fund and just helping everybody in the valley.
Great. Thank you.